Pathetic, the billionaire's voice echoed through the marble halls. You can't even come on time. 7 years, and you still can't follow one simple rule? You're fired, Grace. The entire staff froze. Some looked down. Others dared not breathe. Grace stood trembling, clutching her old faded bag, tears burning in her eyes. She tried to speak, to explain why she was late, but Mr. Hayes turned his back coldly. I don't need excuses from people who don't value time, he said, walking away as the mansion cameras silently recorded everything. But what those cameras captured would soon shock the entire city. Before we continue, tell us in the comments from which country you're watching this story. And if you love emotional stories about truth, justice, and humanity, make sure to subscribe to our channel so you never miss the next one. The morning sun shimmered on the glass walls of Hayes Manor, a mansion that looked more like a palace than a home. With its silver gates, marble driveway, and neatly trimmed gardens, it was the symbol of wealth and perfection, just like its owner, Mr. Alexander Hayes. A billionaire industrialist, Mr. Hayes believed two things ruled: the world, money, and time. And in his eyes, anyone who wasted either didn't deserve a second chance. Inside that mansion worked Grace Thompson, a black maid in her late 40s. She wasn't just a cleaner. She was the quiet heartbeat of that house. Every morning before dawn, she would arrive, unlock the doors, prepare the tea, polish the floors, and greet the staff with a tired but gentle smile. She had worked there for 7 long years, never complained, never raised her voice, and never once took a day off unless her body physically couldn't move. To many, she was invisible, just another maid in a rich man's house. But to a few, like the gardener, Sam, and the cook, Elena, she was family. Grace's life wasn't easy. She lived in a small, rented apartment at the edge of the city, where the streetlights flickered and buses rarely came on time. Her only reason to keep going was her son, Daniel, a sweet, soft-spoken boy battling a serious heart condition. Every paycheck Grace earned went straight to his medication and hospital visits. Each night she'd whisper a promise to him before bed. One day, baby, things will get better. Mama just needs to hold on a little longer. And every morning, before leaving for work, she'd look at his sleeping face and remind herself, no matter what happens, I can't be late. Rich people don't forgive mistakes. That day, everything started like any other. The alarm rang at 5 a.m., and Grace, half asleep, boiled water for tea before heading out. But as soon as she opened her front door, a gust of wind hit her face. A storm was raging outside. Rain poured from the sky like buckets, and the streets were already flooding. Great, she sighed, wrapping her thin scarf around her shoulders and rushing to catch the bus. But when she reached the stop, no bus came. The roads were half blocked. Minutes turned into 10, then 15. Grace began to panic. I can't lose this job, not now, she whispered to herself. She decided to walk the rest of the way. Shoes soaked, umbrella broken, but her determination unshaken. Halfway there, as she passed an intersection, she saw something that made her freeze. A little boy, no more than 6 years old, standing alone in the rain, crying. Cars splashed past him, horns blaring, but no one stopped. Grace's motherly instinct kicked in. She forgot the time, the mansion, everything. She ran toward the boy, pulled him to the side of the road, and wrapped her coat around him. Sweetheart, where's your mama? She asked softly. The boy sobbed. I lost her near the bakery. I was trying to find her. Grace tried, calling the police but couldn't get through. So she waited until a patrol car finally came by and handed the child over, making sure he was safe before she ran again, breathless, drenched, and already 12 minutes late. When she reached the mansion gate, her ID card nearly slipped from her trembling hands. She tried to sneak in quietly, hoping no one would notice. But luck wasn't on her side. The moment she stepped into the hall, she saw Mr. Hayes standing near the grand staircase, dressed in his tailored suit, surrounded by his business partners. His cold eyes fell on her like a laser beam. Pathetic. You can't even come on time? His voice was sharp enough to cut glass. 7 years and you still can't follow one simple rule? You're fired, Grace! Gasps filled the hall. The chef stopped mid-step. The gardener froze at the doorway. Grace's lips trembled. Sir, please, I can explain. I wasn't... But Mr. Hayes raised his hand, silencing her. I don't need excuses from people who don't value time, he said, turning away. No, one spoke as Grace quietly picked up her old brown bag and walked toward the exit. Her shoes left wet footprints on the marble, a silent trail of humiliation. Behind her, the security cameras blinked red, capturing every second of that cruel moment, and what those cameras recorded that day would soon turn the entire story upside down. The morning that changed, Grace's entire life began like any other. Quiet, gray, and lonely. But that day, the sky seemed heavier than usual, as if it already knew what was about to happen. Rain poured down in angry sheets, drumming against her small apartment windows. Grace stood by the stove, holding a chipped mug of tea, staring at the clock ticking toward 6 a.m. Her shift started at 7 sharp, and Mr. Hayes never tolerated delays. She quickly tied her headscarf, packed her son's breakfast, and tiptoed into his room. Daniel was still asleep, his thin frame covered with a blanket. She gently kissed his forehead. I'll be back before sunset, baby, she whispered. Be good for Mrs. Clara next door, okay? The rain outside didn't seem to care. It soaked her old coat the moment she stepped out. The street was almost deserted, only puddles and flickering lights reflected in the water. The first bus was supposed to come at 6:15. She waited, and waited, and waited. Minutes passed like hours. The bus never came. Her hands trembled as she looked at her watch. 6:32. I'm already late, she muttered, anxiety rising in her chest. With no other choice, she decided to walk the remaining 3 kilometers to the Hayes mansion. The city was still half asleep. Her shoes splashed through muddy water, her coat clung to her shoulders, but she kept moving. Each step echoed her silent prayer. Please, God, not today. Don't let me be late today. Halfway through her route, just as she turned the corner of Maple Street, she noticed a small figure standing near a bus stop. A child, maybe 6 or 7, shivering, barefoot, holding a soaked backpack. At first, she thought someone must be with him, but when she looked around, there was no one. The boy's lips were blue, and tears mixed with the rain on his cheeks. Grace's heart sank. She looked at her watch again, 6:48. If she stopped now, she'd never make it on time. But she couldn't just walk away. She rushed toward him and knelt. Hey, sweetheart, where's your mommy? The boy sniffled. I lost her. I ran away because she was yelling. And then, I can't find her anymore. Grace sighed deeply. The wind whipped her scarf away, but she didn't care. She pulled off her coat and wrapped it around the boy. You'll get sick, baby. Don't move, okay? Cars sped by, splashing dirty water near them. Grace waved frantically at one, hoping for help, but no one stopped. Her phone battery was at 2%. She dialed 911 and prayed the call went through. Hello? There's a lost child near Maple and Rose Street. Please send someone quickly. He's freezing. By the time a patrol car finally arrived, it was already 7:05. Grace hugged the boy one last time as the officers took him inside the car. You're safe now, okay? She said with a trembling smile. Your mommy's going to be so happy to see you. As soon as they left, Grace turned and started running, drenched, exhausted, and late. Every step felt like a punishment. Her lungs burned, her feet slipped, but she didn't stop. When she finally reached the tall silver gates of the Hayes mansion, her chest was pounding. The security guard, Ethan, looked surprised. "Grace, are you okay? You look—" "No time," she panted, scanning her ID. "Mr. Hayes will be furious." And he was. Inside, the mansion was already alive with activity. Mr. Hayes had guests. A few foreign investors visiting for breakfast. The chef had just finished setting the table when Grace entered quietly, trying not to draw attention. But Mr. Hayes's sharp eyes caught her immediately. He turned slowly, his voice slicing through the chatter. "Pathetic. You can't even come on time?" Grace froze. Everyone turned toward her. The chef's face fell. Ethan, standing at the door, felt a knot in his stomach. 7 years, Mr. Hayes continued, his tone icy. 7 years and you still can't follow one simple rule? You're fired. The word fired hit her harder than the rain outside. Grace's voice cracked. "Sir, please. I wasn't careless. I was helping." "Enough," he snapped. "Don't you dare make excuses in front of my guests. I don't pay for excuses. I pay for discipline." The room fell silent. Grace lowered her gaze, tears mixing with raindrops still clinging to her face. She nodded faintly, picked up her old bag and whispered, "Yes, sir. I understand." As she turned away, Ethan caught her eye, his expression full of guilt and confusion. He wanted to speak, but the fear of losing his own job kept him frozen. Grace walked out slowly, her shoes squeaking on the polished marble floor. Behind her, the staff watched helplessly, and up on the corner wall, a red light blinked, the mansion's security camera recording every second of her humiliation. No one knew it yet, but that tiny blinking light had just captured a truth that would soon turn the billionaire's perfect world upside down. The rain had stopped by noon, but the mansion still felt heavy with tension. No one dared to speak about what had happened that morning. The sound of Mr. Hayes's anger still echoed in everyone's mind. Grace's absence was like a hollow silence, her small humming while cleaning, her soft greetings, her gentle presence, all gone in a single morning. Inside the security room, Ethan, the head security guard, sat quietly at his desk. He had seen everything, Grace's trembling hands, the humiliation, and the tears she tried to hide. He had worked under Mr. Hayes for 4 years, and though he respected his boss, he couldn't shake the guilt gnawing at his heart. He replayed the scene in his mind again and again. "She didn't even argue," he whispered to himself. "She just left." That afternoon, he received a routine task to write the daily incident report and file any relevant camera footage for record-keeping. As part of protocol, he needed to save the video of Grace's firing to the system archive. With a sigh, Ethan leaned back and began scanning through the security feed, the wide-angle cameras near the main gate, driveway, and lobby. He fast-forwarded through hours of footage until he reached around 6:50 a.m. That's when he noticed something strange. The screen showed Grace's small car pulling up outside the mansion gate, but instead of coming straight in, she had stopped, near the roadside. Ethan leaned closer, adjusting the playback speed. The footage was grainy, but clear enough. He saw Grace stepping out of her car in the pouring rain, running toward something. Then, a child suddenly darted across the street and a speeding car nearly hit him. Grace lunged forward, grabbing the boy just in time, shielding him with her own body. Ethan froze. "No way," he whispered. He rewound and watched again. Slower this time. There was no mistake. She had risked her life to save that kid. After that, she waited by the road, clearly calling for help until a police car arrived and took the boy away. Only then did she run back to her car and drive toward the mansion, drenched and shaking, arriving just 12 minutes late. Ethan's Heart pounded. She wasn't careless. She was saving a child. He immediately saved the footage to his phone, making sure no one could delete it. His hands trembled as he replayed it once more, this time noticing something that made his stomach twist. The little boy she saved looked familiar. Short blonde hair, blue jacket, a face he'd seen before, somewhere inside the mansion. He opened the staff photo log and scrolled through old pictures until one stopped him cold. It was Liam, Mr. Hayes' 6-year-old nephew, the son of his younger brother, who lived just a few streets away. Ethan's eyes widened. "Oh my God," he whispered. "That was his nephew." For a few seconds, he couldn't breathe. The very woman Mr. Hayes had humiliated and thrown out had actually saved his own family without saying a word. Ethan knew he couldn't stay silent. He grabbed his phone, rushed down the hall, and knocked on the office door of Clara, Mr. Hayes' personal assistant. "Clara," he said urgently, "you need to see this." "What is it, Ethan?" "I'm in the middle of—" "Please, it's about Grace." Something in his voice made her pause. He showed her the video clip, fast-forwarding to the part where Grace pulled the child from the street. Clara's hands flew to her mouth. "Oh my goodness, that's Liam! Alexander's nephew," Ethan nodded. "She didn't come late because she was lazy. She came late because she was saving his family." Clara looked both horrified and heartbroken. "He has to see this," she whispered. "Right now." She grabbed her tablet and stormed toward Mr. Hayes' private office upstairs. Inside, the billionaire sat behind his desk reading through business proposals, completely unaware that the truth, captured by his own cameras, was about to shatter his pride forever. And in just a few minutes, the man who thought he knew everything about control, discipline, and perfection was going to learn what true shame really felt like. Mr. Hayes barely looked up when Clara entered his office. His focus was buried deep in a stack of documents, his expression as cold and composed as ever. "Sir," Clara said softly, "there's something you need to see." "Clara, I'm busy. Can't it wait?" he replied, not raising his eyes. "It's about Grace," she insisted, her tone trembling. The mention of that name made him frown slightly. "I already dealt with her, didn't I? No need to bring up the past." Clara hesitated. Then, without another word, she placed her tablet on his desk and pressed play. At first, Mr. Hayes didn't pay attention until he recognized the gates of his mansion on the screen. Then he saw Grace's car. And then, the little boy. His pen dropped from his hand. He leaned forward, eyes narrowing as he watched Grace run into the storm, grab the child, and pull him away from the oncoming car. Her coat flew off as she wrapped it around him. She called the police, waited until help arrived, and only then ran toward the mansion, exhausted, dripping, yet determined to reach work. The video ended with the timestamp, 7:12 a.m., Mr. Hayes. Sat frozen, his jaw tight, his heartbeat echoing in his ears. Who is that boy?" he asked quietly. Clara swallowed hard. "Sir, that's Liam. Your brother's son." The color drained from his face. For a long, unbearable silence, he said nothing. Then, in a whisper, "She saved my nephew." Clara nodded. "Yes, sir. And you fired her, in front of everyone." His breath caught. The weight of what he'd done crashed over him like a wave. The words he had shouted, "Pathetic! You're fired!" now replayed in his mind, each one cutting deeper than before. He had thrown away 7 years of loyalty, kindness, and silent service, all because of his pride. For the first time in years, Alexander Hayes felt something unfamiliar. Shame. He stood up abruptly, pushing back his chair. "Where is she?" "She left right after you fired her," Clara replied gently. "I tried calling, but her phone's disconnected. The neighbor said she hasn't come home since last night. He turned away, pacing near the window. Outside, the sky was clearing, but his world had never felt darker. Later that evening, the story began to spread. A local traffic officer had posted the footage online, calling Grace the woman who saved a child in the storm. Within hours, it went viral. Thousands praised her bravery, and soon after, people recognized the mansion in the video. They connected the dots. "Isn't that the same billionaire who fired his maid this morning?" one user wrote. By nightfall, hashtags flooded social media. Justice for Grace, a billionaire fires, hero Maid, truth revealed Mr. Hayes's name, once associated with power, was now drowning in public outrage. His phone buzzed non-stop. Reporters waited outside his gate. He looked at his reflection in the glass window and whispered, "What have I done?" For the first time in his life, Alexander Hayes wasn't thinking about money, reputation, or rules. He was thinking about a woman who had shown more humanity in 12 minutes than he had in his entire lifetime. For the next few days, the video of Mr. Hayes's outburst spread like wildfire across the internet. News channels replayed the moment Grace was fired over and over again. People were furious. "Heartless billionaire. Humiliates Maid," read one headline. "Grace Thompson, the woman who showed more humanity than a millionaire," read another. But amidst all the chaos, Grace herself remained quiet. She stayed at home, taking care of her mother, her mind still replaying that moment when the man she served for 7 long years had called her pathetic. Then one morning, her phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. A reporter. "Grace, the world deserves to hear your side," he said. At first, she refused. She wasn't seeking pity. But when he showed her something on his tablet, Grace's eyes widened. The security footage, the one from Mr. Hayes's mansion, had leaked. It showed everything. It showed Grace running through the storm, clutching a brown bag in her arms. It showed her stopping when she saw a small dog lying by the roadside, hit by a car. She picked it up carefully, shielding it with her shawl, and ran toward a nearby shelter. And it showed the clock. She had lost only 15 minutes trying to save a life. The same cameras that had witnessed her humiliation now told the truth she had never needed to prove. Within hours, people flooded social media with her story. "Grace, you're a hero." She cared more about life than money. And for the first time, Grace smiled. Not because the world now saw the truth, but because her mother, lying weakly beside her, whispered with pride, "You did the right thing, my child. The world finally knows who you really are." Meanwhile, Mr. Hayes's office was drowning in backlash. Clients began questioning his ethics. His PR manager called in panic. "Sir, this is everywhere, and the board is furious." For the first time in years, Mr. Hayes didn't have words. He sat in silence, replaying the moment in his head, how easily he had dismissed her, how cruel his words sounded. 7 years, he murmured, and I didn't even ask her why. He drove to her small neighborhood that evening. The roads were narrow, nothing like his mansion's polished driveway. When Grace opened the door, she froze in shock. There, he was, in a simple gray coat, holding the same bag she used to carry to work. "Grace," he said softly, his voice stripped of arrogance. "I came to say I'm sorry." She looked at him, the man who once humiliated her, now standing, with eyes full of regret. "I saw the footage," he continued. "You didn't deserve what I did to you. You saved a life, and I took away your dignity." Grace said nothing. Tears rolled down her cheeks, but they weren't from anger. They were from relief. He handed her an envelope. "It's not money," he said. "It's an apology. And an offer to run a new animal shelter I'm funding in your name. You inspired it." Grace's lips trembled. You don't have to. I do, Mr. Hayes interrupted. Because people like you remind people like me what being human truly means. Months later, Grace's Haven opened, a warm shelter where lost animals found a home. Cameras flashed again, but this time they captured something different. Not humiliation, but redemption. And as Grace stood cutting the ribbon, surrounded by smiling faces and wagging tails, she whispered, "Sometimes truth doesn't need revenge. It just needs to be seen." If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with your loved ones. Let's remind the world that kindness still exists, and that truth, no matter how late it arrives, always finds its way.